hello, and welcome. I'm going to start this again. It's absolute madness because he disappeared on the intro.
That was so quick. That was just
on the intro.
It was all going so well.
Do you reckon we should keep going whether he'd log back in again? So there he comes.
There he is. There he is.
And welcome.
We found him.
To the Bones Horror Podcast. That was great.
Oh, he's still muted.
He's still muted. We can't hear you.
There he is.
There we go.
Got that.
That was a great intro. So I'll leave it in.
I'm back.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, definitely do it.
Yeah.
So this is our episode 56. The Lighthouse. And a bit of Starship Troopers.
Yes.
Okay. So for those who followed the podcast since episode 1, it was myself and my friend Stephen, who lives far, far away from me. And I just want to talk about him, really, because he hasn't been very well over the last week. He had a stroke last week, hope you don't mind me saying. So he's gradually getting better, and hopefully we're getting back on a podcast at some point. But, you know, if you want to wish him good luck getting better and things, give us a shout. I'm quite sad about it all. He's been one of my best friends for over 20 years, and he literally couldn't walk the last few days. So sad times, but hopefully he's on the up and he'll be out of hospital soon. Lockdown, which I thought we were all getting through, and then today I get this little message ping to me saying you must isolate for 8 days. And I've had 2 vaccinations, so this is a bit annoying now, and it's starting to take the piss a bit. So I can't work now for 8 days. I have to sit at home, do gardening and things like that. And one of my best friends around here has COVID, so he's not very well at all. But he's had no vaccinations yet. So hopefully he'll get better, and then next time on the podcast, everything's back to normal. Right. And if anyone been up to anything now? All my sad news I just talked about. I know Jess has started a new job.
Yeah.
Which I'm very proud of her. You have, haven't you?
I have a new job, but I'm temporarily doing my old job until someone can take over that job and I can start a new job. So there's a lot going on at the minute, but they've just offered someone the job. So hopefully in a few weeks I will be moving to an office and be a marketing manager.
Nice.
It's great.
Very good.
So
very exciting. Excellent news. Very exciting. So hopefully Jess has some time left for us.
I hope so.
Maybe not. Larry, what have you been up to? The miniatures this week? Little miniatures? Miniatures?
No. I've mainly been watching quite a lot of stuff. I've been playing this new game as well, which was pretty decent, called Chivalry 2. It's kind of come out recently.
Did you go on YouTube or something? Have you got something out playing that game? I'm sure I saw something.
Yeah, I put it on
somewhere.
I put like a clip of it on Instagram.
Is that PC or Xbox?
That's Xbox, but it says that it's crossplay. Although I haven't put this to the test yet, so fingers crossed. It is. But yeah, it's great. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's just kind of set in like when there's knights and you get to choose those kind of characters and just run around in big battles, like kind of like Game of Thrones-esque, but without dragons and stuff and all that.
Is it multiplayer?
Oh yeah, it's only all online. Yeah.
So you just run around.
Yeah, it's tricky though. Yeah, it's tricky because like when I loaded it up, I just thought it would be like mash a certain button probably, but the tutorial itself, and it was done quite well. There's kind of like a strategy to it, so I would recommend it, or even if it's just having a little look at it. It's pretty decent.
I'll have a look at it because I've been playing. It's just talking about games. Me and my son started playing Rust, right, on the Xbox. On the Xbox. So what I found with this game is you put a lot of time and effort in, right? So you build these little bases, and my son was nearly in tears. The story I'm about to tell you. So we build it all and reinforce it and everything else. spend a couple of days doing it. Not literally days, but a few hours here and there. Come back the next day, someone's blown your fucking doors off and taken everything.
Blow the bloody doors off.
I actually had this conversation earlier with Rob because I want to play it.
And I'm like, what was the point? Like, I was really enjoying this game. I wasn't attacking anyone. He wasn't attacking anyone. We were grinding out, getting it built. And then some bellends come along and just blow the doors off, take your stuff, and for what?
Yeah.
Is this the aim of the game? It's just to piss people off?
Yeah.
Is it?
Well, I said to Rob earlier, I was like, oh, it's on sale on Steam, and I was thinking of getting it. Yeah. And he was like, you'll hate it because people are assholes and you'll just really not enjoy
online
playing
griefers.
I was like, oh. Yeah.
That's the aim of the game, is just to be an arsehole. And that would suit a lot of people. I think Paul would enjoy that. So, anyway, sorry, Ewan. Anything this week?
Well, I've mainly been sort of keeping inside. I'm always slightly sort of anxious and hesitant to even go outside. But I've been to London a few times to see film screenings and stuff. But I went last week when England and Germany were playing, and they had this massive screen in Trafalgar Square. And I've gotten slightly more into the football recently because everyone's going on about it. But at the time, I'm not a big fan of crowds, and I was in the middle of Leicester Square, and just everyone just going, "It's coming home, it's coming home," every 15 seconds.
It's coming home, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the word. That's what they're saying. So we might as well call it now and say we've won the Euro.
Yeah. Sweden, are you listening? It's coming home. They love that.
So yeah, that's me. I've just been moseying around, I guess.
Yeah. So Denmark tomorrow night.
So
I'll be watching that. So let's get on to this film. So The Lighthouse, made in 2019. A brief description of this film. What do you call it, Jess? Synopsis. Now, I don't really know how to explain it because I think it's a tale kind of loneliness, but I might completely be wrong on that because I'm not sure what's real in it, what's not. I don't know if there's real mermaids. I don't know what the fuck his name is, whether he was lying. So I don't know lots of things. So I've no idea what's going on. So what is it, a tale of loneliness, or is it a tale of dreaming? Or I don't know. What is it, Larry?
Tell us the truth, Larry.
If you were to explain it in just a couple of lines.
I'd say it's very much open to interpretation. I don't think that you're wrong at all.
I hate this. I don't like that because it's just people making stuff up. That's what it is.
But that's every film.
It seems to be every film Larry likes. It's like, it could be anything, So it could be aliens. Was it aliens? I don't know. Was that mermaid real? Please tell me.
Well, people who haven't seen The Lighthouse have no idea what's going on at the moment.
So I just want a couple of lines. So is it a tale of loneliness?
Well, again, so it's up very much for interpretation. That is definitely a theme that is put within the film. It's very much what I take away from it is that it's about a man's kind of the character of Robert Pattinson, his mental state, and how it deteriorates. And there are specific things in the film that are purposely designed to make the audience feel like that. So there's a specific scene where they're basically two lighthouse keepers go to this island to watch over this lighthouse, and they're supposed to be there a certain amount of time, and essentially then they end up missing their boat home, and it's very much left as to how long they've been there, what's really going on. But yeah, that specific scene, just in general, is when the William Dafoe's character, the other lighthouse keeper, who's very much the one in charge, purposely gets Robert Pattinson's character drunk the night before they go, and he's very much designed to just. He's very much fucking with Robert Pattinson in that he has a very bipolar relationship with him. One minute he talks to him really professionally and almost in a kind of friendly manner. The next it's like, I fucking hate you. So yeah, you're not wrong in that it's very much about loneliness. I think that it's also about guilt. It's also about how one kind of deals with isolation. But I think it's designed, it has a very Lovecraftian take on it, where it's the fear of the unknown. So there's a lot of folklore tale stories in there of the seagulls and the god of the sea, Prometheus, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I guess, I'd say you're not wrong. It's very much open to interpretation.
Yeah. Well, thanks for those couple of brief lines on the introduction there. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is Lawrence's.
Brilliant, Lawrence. So, no, he explained a lot there.
Yeah, well, this is one of your favourite films, isn't it, Lawrence? Or at least definitely in the last few years.
So I mentioned The Witch earlier. The Witch had come out, and I agree. Like, I'd seen that, and I thought that was really good. And then I heard that he was making his second film, The Lighthouse, and when I heard this like kind of buzz around it, I was very much like, oh, this is very much right up my alley with like Lovecraft horror. And so when I saw the first trailer, which I think it was shown at, I want to say it was Sundance, it was somewhere like that. It had a very weird release. And then, watched it the first time, and I was not disappointed. It's kind of what I wanted from a film like that, because I think me and Ewan discussed this the other day. We were talking about Lovecraft horror, and sometimes people seem to think that means, big old creature in the water, which then snatches people and eats them, and then Cthulhu-esque, but it's actually more about the fear of the unknown and actually not knowing what's real, not distinguishing the two, I find anyway. So I think it kind of serves that purpose.
I also think with The Lighthouse, it seems to me, because I first watched it actually before it came out. I saw it at the London Film Festival I think it was in 2019, or maybe it was 2019, and it was at a really big screen. It was at the Odeon Lux in Leicester Square, like really lovely screen. Unfortunately, it was like as usual with the London Film Festival, they show a lot of their big films right early on in the morning. So they showed The Lighthouse about 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was a really disorienting experience. But it's funny because I didn't take to it when I first watched it, even in the cinema and everything. I mean, I thought it was a beautifully made film, but I guess I didn't really relate to it. But I think the second time I liked it a lot more, and I think that's because when I went in, I assumed it would just be, even though I seen the trailers and it was all black and white and it's Robert Eggers, so it wouldn't be a usual experience. I kind of expected a more typical horror film experience. And because I didn't get that, I was sort of, I think I was slightly disappointed. Whereas when I watched it the second time, it was far more, because I knew what to expect, it became a bit more fulfilling. And in many ways, I don't treat it as a horror film. I treat it as a kind of demented sitcom in a strange way, like sort of Steptoe and Son.
Yeah, I agree.
I've got many questions about it in a minute. Many questions. So it was directed by Robert Eggers. Yeah. And he co-wrote it with his brother. So I wrote that down. Max. Robert Eggers made The Witch, as we just talked about. So it starred Robert Pattinson as
Tom Winslow,
Ephraim, or Thomas,
or young.
In the script he has him a young and old.
Willem Dafoe as Thomas Wake. Not really many actors other than the seagull was great. The one with one eye. I thought, again, we do love seagulls on this podcast, but I thought he was great. even when he was getting his brain smashed in. I thought
it's a real seagull as well, not the one that gets a head smashed
Sully.
in. But
it was.
His name's Sully.
It says deceased now on
his Wikipedia. On his, he has his own Wikipedia page.
You should. I advise anyone to go read his bio on IMDb. It's
really?
it's very good.
Sammy.
Wow.
Yep.
Had a budget of 4 million, a box office of 18 million, mainly due to Larry going to watch it.
I actually didn't see it in cinemas. Ironically, I had to wait until it came out on streaming on Amazon. Because
Really?
it was impossible. It showed at some cinemas, but then they took it out and it didn't get a normal release. It was very much, you have to wait till...
That's done well then.
I was very
really
surprised by it because
Yeah, that is strange because it is a very cinematic. Well, I say it's a very cinematic film because it's a film, but in terms of like how it's made and everything, and how the shots like play out, it's very sort of. It should.
I think in America it must have had a normal release, but I know over in the UK it didn't. It wasn't released like to normal cinemas.
Yeah.
But that's what surprised me actually, because I only realised this today because I watched the making of like a few hours ago, and I actually didn't realise. I don't know if this is me being thick, but I actually didn't realise that it wasn't set in Britain. And the reason why I thought it was, or at least off the coast of Britain, and the reason I thought it was because their accents are very British or British sounding, whereas actually, as Robert Pattinson says in the making of, it's actually the accents in Maine, so north, sort of northeast section of America, the accents in Maine actually sounded very, very British, sort of west of England style. So it was a really revelation that it was actually American as opposed to British. So I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons why it did so well in America. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes. Jess, what do you think? I'm not going to ask these two, but what do you think?
I'm gonna say like 85.
Okay, so it's 90.
Well, that's I didn't realize it would be that high because it is one of those movies I think that I reckon a lot of people would hate, at least if like Amazon reviews or anything to go by, it'll be sort of I'd imagine a lot of people would be very sort of frustrated.
I've noticed that as the film's been out quite a while, there are still more people studying it and like bringing out their own interpretations of it, and there are so many different ones. And what's great is that none of them you can turn to and be like, that is completely wrong, because it's so left open to that. I mean, there's little things in there that point towards certain revelations and stuff, but primarily it is very much left down to what you believe has happened on that little island, which is mental because they actually built that whole lighthouse. Just don't see that at all, hardly with certain films. Just built the whole light.
It's built out of miniatures. It's miniature there.
Honestly, if it was when watching that making of, and they just had all the construction crew just putting together this lighthouse,
it's ridiculous.
It's, honestly,
is it real then, or is it like made?
No, it's a real lighthouse.
They made
it's a real lighthouse with certain bits that probably.
It's still there.
I believe so. I think that it's not a working lighthouse. Like it does work, but I don't think it's like used as a working lighthouse. But I believe the set is still there.
So just a question on the lighthouse. How did they make the noise?
Oh, it's a great noise.
Yeah.
Maybe they took it in from you, Kev, with that that shipborne noise you play before the podcast all the time.
What? That?
Yeah, there you go.
That's the one.
Literally, if you play that twice, that's the opening of the film.
But how is that sound made? Because it's obviously it runs off. Does it run off steam? This lighthouse? They're smashing coal into it, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a big light up there. And how is the sound generated?
I don't know, but I think it's all part of that kind of. It's first of all creating that atmosphere.
It's bloody loud, wasn't it? You can imagine how loud it was in there.
It's really loud, and it's also quite interesting because I think Lawrence, you spoke about this with Cloverfield about how the filmmakers use sound design almost like music. And they talked about this in the making of the Lighthouse as well, how they sort of merged the music and the sound design together, which includes that ship horn, which is it a ship horn? Is it a lighthouse horn? Whatever it is. It's kind of like it. When I first heard it, it's almost like music, and you sort of interpret it as music and part of that. But then you realize it's more. I think the word is diegetic, where it's like it's actually a part of the scenery in a way, and it makes it so much more disorienting. And you hear it occasionally, and even though I wasn't that scared of the film when that noise came up, it's very unsettling.
I didn't find it at all scary. I don't think any of it. Now I tried to get my son to watch it with me, Ollie, the oldest one, last night, and he thought he was watching Cold Skin. Which you've probably seen, Larry? No?
Cold Skin.
I thought you were talking about literally Cold
That's
Skin.
What I thought as well at first. I was like, oh.
Cold Skin. Have you seen it, no?
No?
I don't believe so. I might have. The name's not ringing a bell, though.
Oh, there's some guys. I don't think they're in a lighthouse. They might be. They're on an island anyway, and these creatures come at night, and he manages to capture one. And it's very much has that kind of feel to it. I want to say that the lighthouse does have a bit of that. And he thought he was watching it last night, and when I told him it wasn't that, he went to bed. After about 20 minutes.
I was going to say, I don't think it's probably...
Cold Skin is worth a watch, Larry. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, Ewan or Jess.
I'll give it a watch.
Cold Skin, I think you would enjoy it. Highly recommend it. 7 boners, I would have thought. So, Jess, did you watch it off my account? You did watch it?
I just found it online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally legally.
Yeah, I would imagine. So.
Yep.
So there's a few things I want to talk about, and I expect you all do. But what? I don't know if I missed something. Remember, I've watched this twice. Ephraim or Thomas. Thomas, was he, or Ephraim, was he killed by Thomas? Can you just explain that, or did he just die accidentally? Do you actually know, or was there no Ephraim or Thomas? Or is he someone else?
So he's basically, Robert Pattinson has taken the identity of somebody else, which ironically, his real name and like real identity kind of resolves back to like reading the script again of Young and Old. So that they're like very much, it's like an older version of Robert Pattinson who's manning the lighthouse. But yeah, it's heavily implied that he basically, whether it was an accident or not, but it's implied that he killed the other matey and then decided to take his role almost into that, which is why he's so, there's a heavy emphasis on why just spill your beans, because it's almost that thing of, his guilt is very much like how he portrays that in isolation and to himself. And so it's implied, yes, that he did kill that matey.
So maybe under the influence of alcohol he did that, because he didn't want to drink it first.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, is that William Dafoe's character in the film exploits a lot of what Robert Pattinson's character does or does not want to do. I mean, even like when it comes down to the drinking, they run out of alcohol, and so they end up what is it they do? They end up taking, like, using some of the, I forget what it's called. I don't know if it's like reminiscences of the oil, but they mix it basically, and it's like, it's very, very obviously dangerous, but they've got to that point where their dependency of it. But yeah, it's William Dafoe basically like fucking around with it.
He's brilliant in it.
I think they're both fantastic for a two character cast holding the whole like kind of film. I don't ever think any of their performances are dull or come across as like, boring. No. They are both, you can tell they're both giving probably 110% in that, which I love, because that's what adds to the effect for me.
Well, some of the fart humour at the beginning, that was just brilliant. It was just timing, it was just funny. Well, I haven't got too much more to say on it. There's something I want to talk about that happens at the end. but you guys need to just tell us what you liked or what you didn't really. I totally the bit with the light at the end, is that what you call it in Lighthouse? The big light where it. I don't know if he's what's going on with him, but we'll talk about that in a bit because that is a proper spoiler, isn't it? So, so what are your thoughts? So Jess is the first watch, isn't it?
Yeah.
So was it what you thought it was going to be? Because
I had no idea what it was. I didn't look anything up beforehand, so I probably should have paid more attention to it. But I put it on, and I had no idea when it was made, who was going to be in it or anything. And I sat here the whole time being like, this guy really looks like Robert Pattinson. And then I saw William Dafoe and I was like, oh, that probably is Robert Pattinson. And then I realised. And I just like... there was just tentacles and mermaids. And like, I looked away for a second and suddenly there was this mermaid on screen and I didn't really know what was going on for the most part. I watched a video afterwards explaining the film, which obviously talked about like the gods, Poseidon and stuff like that, and I guess that all kind of could make sense.
He could have been in it.
Yeah,
stuck Aquaman in it. It'd have been good.
Aquaman.
Yeah, I don't really have any likes or dislikes on this film. I just didn't really connect with it whatsoever. So.
And you know, I can sort of empathise with that because I think the difficulty with the film is that it's sort of it's very mysterious. You don't quite know where it is, even though it was filmed in like Nova Scotia and stuff. You don't really know where it is. You're not really sure about these characters. And I mean, if there's one flaw, I think for me is that I just wanted more time with the characters. Which, you know, is probably not an actual criticism because that suggests I really like the film. But also I really like, especially after the second watch, is sort of, I really like the interpretive nature of it in that it can sort of, it's sort of yours to figure out stuff that happens. So, for example, my interpretation was that, I mean, like what you were saying about Loneliness earlier, Kev, is that Willem Dafoe's character is actually like on his own on the island, and he's left with all his like traumas and griefs and like, you know, guilt for stuff he's done in the past. And Robert Pattinson is essentially the younger version of himself, and the sort of arguments he has, and the sort of the younger version eventually killing the older version in the end, and then he's ended up being punished for it. It's again, that's only my interpretation of it, and I think that's the great thing about these kinds of films. Even though I still have reservations about The Lighthouse as a whole, I just love the fact that Robert Eggers has created this thing where you can sort of when everyone can have a different take on it. And I think also just the choice to have it in black and white and in not Academy ratio, which is the sort of Hollywood ratio of the time. So it's not 1.33, but it's 1.19, which is an even tighter frame, and you can sort of see it. I mean, it's obviously no surprise in the fact that all the sets were designed and all of them were fake to some extent, because you can see how perfectly aligned with the camera and how with the aspect ratio and stuff it is. And in some ways that makes it more disorienting. I also think it's interesting because watching the making of, you watch, obviously they show clips of stuff that happened like that, and there were shots, like pretty memorable shots that I just forgotten entirely. And I think that sort of adds to the effect in some ways, because it's almost like trying to remember a dream where you sort of remember snippets and you think, oh yeah, that's a really vivid thought I had and I just totally forgotten it. And I think I think above all, I think this film does so well in terms of atmosphere. I mean, I really like the characters and the dialogue as well, but I think in terms of atmosphere, Eggers have got it pretty nailed down. And I think it's very good, yeah.
I agree with that.
Bam.
Most of it.
Yeah, I love Rob Eggers. Like, I'm looking so forward to his next venture, which is called The Northman. But yeah, with this, I agree with all of that. Like, it's one of those films that I think Robert Eggers is he has such an attention to detail and especially like with The Witch beforehand and with this, I think that he's always going to be one of those directors where his films aren't for everyone. But I think that in this case, I think like with The Witch, he's gone for a very folklore tale atmosphere. With this, he goes for a very Lovecraftian. So it'll be interesting to see what his third film is going to be. And I again, it's so weird, but I love how he's titling them all as well, like The Witch, The Lighthouse, The Northman. Mm-hmm. So I think if The Northman comes out and it has a very similar kind of atmosphere to this, then yeah, I mean, it could be perceived as kind of like keeping up with that, but I'm hoping that each one has a very distinct genre to it.
I also feel like did you feel like he's just getting started?
Yeah.
In terms of like this is just the beginning, and he's gonna have a very prolific career just creating like ridiculously interesting films. I just feel that's the case.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Like I feel as though, again, people, I can understand it not being like their probably their cup of tea. And I do think that there are certain audiences for his films. Same with Ari Aster, with Midsummer and Hereditary. They're very different forms of horror. And as you said, this borderlines comedic at certain points because it's how it deals with its characters. But yeah, I feel that Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, they both have this very prolific style about them. And I feel that both of them, with their upcoming films, are only just going to expand on it. And I do feel that this and The Witch will become, dare I say, cult, but I do think it has that sort of status at the moment where when it's mentioned and it's discussed upon, there's still so many things coming out about all of those realms of films that I do think that it's the way in which horror will evolve in future. I feel as though there's a certain market at the moment which is very much based on remakes and sequels and, very much highlighted with like anthologies or the seventh film in the whatever. And I feel as though with these sort of films, and I guess you could say like experimental-esque sort of films,
more original.
Yeah, I feel as though more independent like filmmakers will probably take a step in that direction when they're doing like horrors.
Well, Lawrence, what about what will happen in 10 years when there'll be a Lighthouse prequel?
It can go in the bin with every James Wan horror film. I don't want a prequel, a sequel, nothing. This is what I mean. Like, it's like if they did it with The Witch. If they brought The Witch 2 Haunting Season, I'd just be like, stop. So
that sounds great.
Of course it does.
Amazing. And then you get the third one as well, The Revenge of the Witch. And then
The Witch 3, Annabelle Rising.
Wrath. Yeah, Wrath of the Witch. Oh, I can see it now, mate. Yeah. No, my last question. At the end, he obviously, what happens, and he makes his way up the lighthouse. And at first, I thought he was being burnt by the light. What is going on? Is he absorbing some kind of power?
From exactly Robert Eggers' own words, not quoting word for word, but the way that he put it is that the same way in that The Witch at the end, you have Anya Taylor-Joy looking at something and then it builds up and you never really see the transformation of that and her ascend into that. They're both based on not only famous paintings but also that it goes back to that Lovecraftian fear, which is they could show you a big massive monster, they could show you a face in the light or a jump scare, but it would never match to what you would think that horror could be. So it's very much again left to it's very much saying that nothing that they would show you would ever beat what you would come up in your own head. So it's very much that when he looks into the light, he sees something that we probably could go, oh, is it this? And I think that's the mystery behind it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I think it's both with the witch and the lighthouse. In that final shot, there's a kind of, I don't know, there's like, it's almost like a feeling of ecstasy, and it's like there's sort of, I mean, both Taylor-Joy and Pattinson seem to be going into a sort of, I don't know, a really sort of almost happy or just sort of pleasurable existence. I think. I mean, that's how I interpreted it anyway. I mean, it's the part. I think that's part of the reason why Willem Dafoe's character keeps going up there all the time, is to sort of re-experience that feeling of ecstasy, that whatever ecstasy that light brings him. And I think it's always up to interpretation what that light can be. I mean, it's almost like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, where you just sort of like it almost doesn't matter what it is actually. It's just what it creates and what feeling it engenders. And I think again that's part of why the film's really good.
At the end, I presume he lives, right? So how do you think he was saved? Not long after that, or
I mean,
because I know he had a couple of injuries and he had a pet bird eating him, but
yeah. So that's
do you think
based.
He lived? Do you think he lived?
So that's based on the like Prometheus taking fire from the gods, and the imagery at the end of having the seagulls poke out his intestines, his eyes, is Prometheus's punishment, where he would get basically tied to a rock. Birds would come and peck out his innards, and overnight they would heal, and in the next morning it would repeat. So the idea, from my interpretation personally, is that the him that we see fall down the stairs after the light is
gone triangle, isn't it?
Is very much him. But I feel as though
it's gone full triangle.
I feel as though the end shot of Robert Pattinson being eaten by the seagulls is very much an interpretation for probably his soul, of how he feels tortured every day, of that consistent, meddled with fire, tried to steal fire, kills Willem Dafoe in order to obtain that fire, being the light, and is almost punished for it. So that's my interpretation. So, but again, there's no...
Yeah, I kind of felt... That's why I thought it felt like he was going to live. Kind of.
I suppose I interpreted it more emotionally than that. I sort of thought that it's far more to do with his guilt and how he feels like he should be punished. And I feel like, because again, in my interpretation, I think both characters are the same person. I feel like with the absorption that Willem Dafoe characters had of all the mythology and all the sort of folklore and stuff, he sort of interpreted that almost like in a Promethean way, in that he feels like he deserves to be punished, and the way he wants to be punished is by having the birds eat his intestines. And maybe that happens every day, and maybe that circles back to the Promethean, where the same, that's just one day in the existence of this man, and then it repeats itself.
Yeah. So, boners. Because I'm so glad we watched this very happy, fun film. I personally, is it horror? It has slight elements. I don't think it is horror. You might disagree, Larry. It does make you feel uncomfortable at times.
I personally do think it is, but I do think that it puts other elements in that, like the comedy and the way it's structured and stuff.
Yeah,
that it's not. Again, it depends, because there's very many forms of scary. So for me, I think it fits into horror, but just not conventional horror, such as scares and I think it's more about the feeling a bit like uncomfortable in certain scenes. And
yeah, definitely. So for me, I'd give it a 6. And I will watch it again now. Now I've bought it, I'm gonna have to. Jess,
I'd probably give it a 5, because I just didn't connect at all with it.
That's a good score. Really? You in?
Yeah, well, so when I watched the first time, I would probably give it a 7, but after watching the second time, probably an 8 for me.
Oh, nice. Larry?
Yeah. No, so me personally, it's the same with The Witch, because they are both two of my absolute favourites. It's up there with The Thing, and it's up there with Alien. So yeah, it is a 10. I said this when it first came out, and a lot of people did say to me the same of like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. Because for me personally, it goes beyond just the film for me with this one and The Witch. It's you see a lot of people when they do horrors, they're like, it's very much like, quick, CGI, throw this in. Yep. And for me, the Robert Eggers is such and again, this is just to me, but he's such a great director who really loves his craft and cares about it, that I think the film, even if it might not be everyone's cup of tea, I think it's a masterful film, the same as The Witch, the way it's shot, the sound, the colour, the dialogue, and the acting. Just that's why it gets a 10 for me.
Well, we're looking at about 7.5.
It beat Swamp Ape. I was very worried.
It did beat.
I was very worried.
I was never going to give it lower. Wow, has it got the same as Swamp Ape for me? Maybe. Can't remember what I'd give it. I've been eating a lot of pepperonis actually. They've been on offer recently.
I was not expecting. I was not expecting that.
Do you like a pepperoni?
I'm interested to see what everyone thought of the other one. Very different. Purposely tried to make it different.
We're going to quickly talk about maybe 10 minutes on, 15 minutes on Starship.
It doesn't need too long. It doesn't need. Too long.
I'm just going to go. Again, I'm going to be unprofessional again and just go to the toilet. So just talk amongst yourselves, and I'll return.
In a bit. So, Starship Troopers. Is it Paul Verhoeven? Verhoeven? Dutch director?
Yeah, same director as Total Recall, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and many other good films.
Just reminded me of something I watched the other night that I absolutely adore. And I watched it, maybe it was last night, night before. I'll talk about that in a minute. Does remind me. So Starship Troopers, 1997. So it's pretty old.
And yet the effects hold up.
They definitely hold up. Budget 105 million. Box office 121 million. That was the only one released at the cinema. Because I think there are a few of these. There's even like cartoon versions of this, isn't there? Or
they made loads of sequels afterwards, but each sequel decreased in budget heavily.
So this for me
is a bunch of cheese. It's so cheesy.
No, but don't. I found some of the dialogue extremely annoying. I found the girl with the eyebrows extremely annoying.
Carmen, or is this Carmen?
His original girlfriend,
Carmen.
Not the other girl. The other
Carmen.
girl I quite
Dizzy.
liked, actually.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, Dizzy was really good. She was more kind of...
I've seen this film too many times.
She was prettier, for starters. But, yeah, she was more on it and more fun and certainly acted better. Denise Richards, isn't it? Was the other one. Honestly, I've wanted it every time she's in it, the way she talks. And the thing was, if that was my girlfriend, like the way she acted with the other guy as well, she's just like, I don't know, the signal she's constantly sending out, and he's taking it, and she acts like she's a really good person. And she wasn't. She was bloody awful.
I will not disagree with you on any of it. Like,
she is absolutely horrible person. Oh, they're lovely. Look at my eyebrows. Do you know what I mean? It's like, piss off, love. So you got the other one, Dizzy, who really likes what's his name? It says Private Corporal Sergeant Lieutenant Rico, right? He goes through every rank, doesn't he, in the space of a couple of days?
But then again,
Might have been general. Give it another day.
That's
or
I
two.
think though that plays into that. That's something that I think. Again, the whole, for me anyway, the film is very much a satire on war. The advert breaks that you get halfway between where it's like, would you like to know more? and it's very much, let's show all these kids stamping on bugs, and it's like, the only good bug is a dead bug, and it's very satirical. It's trying to almost,
Yeah. It was that RoboCop. He did RoboCop.
Yes,
Yeah. I just looked at that because it just reminded me of that totally. And what was the other one? Schwarzenegger. Total Recall. Hollow Man, which is there's something wrong with that film. Isn't there?
Yeah.
Invisible Rapist Men. It's just like, it's just weird, mate. There's something wrong with them as well.
Are you muted, Ewan, or is this just me? Yeah, I thought so. I thought so.
Sorry. I was talking. I know. That's why you did. Oh,
I
right.
thought that the mic. I thought that my.
Sorry,
it was on my end. I was like, oh shit. Just double check. But yeah, I love it. I love it as just a film. I've seen it so many times with my friend Reese. We love this film because we watched it. It was one of those things that we talk about like at a young age, and it was just like that go-to, like, this is over the top, cheesy. Like I mentioned it with you in the other day, that just every single line of dialogue can be laughed at because it's so, just little things like when Neil Patrick Harris comes in and he's now like a proper general, dressed in a certain in a certain way, and it's very much like, every bit of dialogue is like, you knew the bugs were on this planet. It's like, well, too bad, boys and girls. And you're just like, what? This is so, but that's what I think makes it so funny.
Did the bugs have aircraft, like, stuff?
They don't have, like, aircraft, but the idea, again, is, like, with the satirical nature of the war stuff, like, they skip over it very quickly, and again, it was another thing I was saying to you in the about it, is that they say that the bugs caused they threw the first meteor at the humans, but it's actually the other way around. If you look very closely in the background, the humans are the one who initiate it, but then through their advertising and everything like that, they try and paint it a certain way where they're like, whoa, we're being attacked. And again, I just love it. I just love how
they're great bugs.
Oh yeah, the design is great.
So basically, it's just Earth, the humans, fighting bugs, giant ones at that.
Yeah, well, they threatened to, like, I imagine there would be a way that they'd get over, because there's the big brain bug that is, is obviously like coordinating everything. But yeah, I think the fear is that, like, they've got bugs on one planet that are moving to that are, I guess, burrowing on different planets and firing asteroids at Earth. So the idea is that it's set in the future, and the human race are going to mount attacks on it, and it's like a war that's been kind of escalating. And yeah.
Jess, what were your thoughts on this?
I can't wait. This is probably so stupid.
It's like, Rotten Tomatoes. What, Rotten Tomatoes? It's got 65%.
Yes, I'd say that's whereabouts I'd put it.
Yeah, I quite liked it. To be honest, I found it funny. Yeah, I was sat here and Rob came in and I said I needed to watch these films. He's like, oh, what ones have you got to watch? I was like, oh, well, there's one called Starship Troopers. And he was like, Starship Troopers? I was like, yes. He ran, put the TV on, found it on Disney Plus, and was like, I'm watching it now. I was like,
that's what it is. It's one of those films.
Yeah, we were so excited to watch it. So, yeah, quite liked it.
I think, like, another thing, again, that touched upon as well, was like, with you, and I'd let you go into, because you worded it perfectly when you said it, but like with the gore aspect.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very interesting comparing it to sort of those the same genre movies that are made now. Like, producers now would see a thing like Starship Troopers and say, oh, we need less gore, much less gore, maybe not even any blood, certainly no nudity, because they want to have it a sort of a 12 rating or something like that. Whereas in a lot of Paul Verhoeven's work, including like Total Recall and stuff like that, there's such a sort of an enjoyable level of violence that's so ridiculous and so unnecessary, but it's so fun because it's just it makes it feel like, I mean, it's clearly like, in many ways I mean, I know it's a satire and it's talking about very intelligent stuff, but in many ways it's very goofy and very kiddie. And just to have like loads of violence and stuff in the middle of that makes it so much more enjoyable. And I think a lot of producers now are very wary of creating that because they're afraid of limiting their audience. And also, I mean, it's funny as well because I mean, with this film, I was slightly skeptical, and I'm still slightly skeptical about it. But it's sort of, I feel like I enjoy more reading about it than I did actually watching it, and Lawrence actually, I mean, we talked about it a few days ago. He actually like pointed out things to me which I think would make my second experience more enlightening. But I think also I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty recently, which we'll probably get to later on, and I think obviously Rick and Morty was inspired in part by Starship Troopers, but I think Rick and Morty, because they go deep into like the actual civilizations that they visit in many ways, whereas in Starship Troopers they don't really go into the history of the spiders in any way. And I think if they did do that, it would push the satire even further. But then again, I was reading about it again before I came on here. The way they've done it kind of fits with the whole propaganda model which the film is trying to take, and so in a way you don't want a sort of another layer to them, because that destroys the whole propaganda aspect to it. But also I was really interested in the structure of this film in terms of like the genres it takes on. So it starts off with that news broadcast where it's clearly like, you know, all out sci-fi, and then it goes to Earth, then it goes to sort of dystopian Earth, and then it enters a high school movie, which is very strange. And then once they go off to the army, it's very much a Vietnam movie. You know, I mean, very inspired by Full Metal Jacket and just like everything like that. Then they go into the sci-fi model, and it's like it was always really disorienting. But I did enjoy it. I thought it could have been slightly funnier, but I think. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to the end, especially like Neil Patrick Harris, who was it's very odd seeing him that young. Yeah. But yeah, I did enjoy it. Yeah,
it's great. It's just like a bunch of fun, isn't it? And my favorite bit's when they go on Planet P to that base, and they just get fucked over by the bugs. It's just like, this is a trap, isn't it? It's like, yeah.
I enjoyed it. Like, again, it's another one I bought. I don't know. Keep buying these films, but it's a lot of fun. I think Alex, my middle one, he watched it. He loved it. Found it very funny. Obviously, there was naked women in it. He liked that.
Do you also think that Paul Verhoeven has a thing for teeth? He has. I feel like, especially with Denise Richards, it's almost like she was directed to say, show some teeth, Denise, show some teeth," and she gets it in the ear like that. And it was the same with one of the male soldiers as well. He had really distinctive teeth.
The second, like his second in command, right?
Just really bright and just really sort of perfect.
Just going into that, which just, I don't know why this reminded me, but that's another thing I love about this film, is that it sets up these characters where, like, I wouldn't say it gives them loads and loads of backstory and personalities, but you kind of get a feel for each of them, and then the film unrelentlessly goes like, Bob takes there's that guy in the training field where he takes his helmet off. And it's just
that was very Saving Private Ryan, wasn't it? That was just on a training ground.
The use of live fire rounds, and it's got and one of the generals is Hank from Breaking Bad.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Well, wasn't there was a really weird shot where he was talking to his soldiers?
Yeah.
And it looked like he was made to look taller, or that he had a body that wasn't really his. It was a really weird shot. I've got to try and remember it, but yeah, it was really, because he's obviously, we know he's short because of Breaking Bad, but I feel like he was made to look much taller than he actually was.
There's a lot in that film that's probably like,
yeah.
So, Jake Busey, right? I think his nickname's the Tooth. So he's got the big teeth. See, I've watched him in a few films, and he makes me laugh every time. But you know, his dad,
the guy from Predator 2,
Gary Busey, who is mad as a hatter, isn't he? So, like, if you ever watch any of his films, But I thought he was really every scene. He was like, yeah, you know what I mean? And he was superb. But he was kind of the bully at first, wasn't he? And then they become best friends. But no, I thought he was great in it all the way through. So, do you want to spend some more time talking about this, or just tell people to go watch it?
Go watch it. I'd say it's a fun time. You don't have to really sit and give it, every single bit of it is very much to be taken as, I guess, a fun sort of very gory. It's got good effects. The CGI really does hold up. I mean, yes, there are certain parts, but there are just certain effects that, like, especially when they're interacting with people, I think that they're great. And yeah, I'd say give it a watch. I think.
Yeah. In many ways, it's the opposite to the lighthouse. The polar opposite.
Very, very, very opposite.
There's a very different feeling at the end. It was very long, though, Starship Troopers, I think. If I remember rightly. It felt very long.
It's only about 2 hours.
I think so, yeah.
Mind you, Lighthouse was nearly a couple of hours, wasn't it?
I think Lighthouse, was about 2 hours and something.
So I'd give that 7 bonus. Jess?
Probably 7 as well.
7?
Yeah.
Mine's slightly lower. I'll probably go about 6, only because, but it might improve when I watch it again, because I feel like I probably will watch it again at some point. But yeah, 6 from
Mine's
me.
a solid 8. I love it. It's good film.
He's,
I picked 2 films that.
He's throwing out bonus tonight. He's absolutely throwing his bonus out.
We used to say that when you went to the clubs, didn't we, Lewis?
Throw out our bonus.
Yeah, Lewis, let's throw out our bonus. Go chapel.
Throw out our bonus.
That's a nightclub in Salisbury, by the way, not an actual chapel.
Sounds great. So we move on to what we've been watching over the last couple of weeks.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
Now, I've watched a fair bit. I'm only going to talk about a couple of movies. 3 movies. But I have been watching Loki, so I've been enjoying that, and I expect you guys will want to talk about that. Unless you spoke about it last week. I think I've watched 3 episodes. Is there a 4th now?
Yeah.
There'll be a 4th tomorrow, I think, is there?
Okay.
Or is it, or has
We've
it
got
been
4 number 5s tomorrow.
Right. Oh, okay.
So I've still got, I have a couple more then. Which is great fun. Enjoying that. Actually, I'm enjoying that more than... What was the other one?
WandaVision.
What was it? Yes, I'm enjoying it more than that. It's more fun. A film I watched on Prime, and I got no idea why I watched it. I don't know. It was called Tall Men. And basically, there was some very odd acting in it. And it was a bit of a cheaper film. Not as cheap as Swamp Ape. But it was a story of a guy who had gone bankrupt. He kept spending lots of money. So he'd gone bankrupt. And he signed off his bankruptcy thing. And then someone sent him kind of a letter through the post saying, we'll offer you, some more credit. And he's not meant to ever take credit again. That was the deal we made. So he takes the credit and he bought a car, and he gets a bill, and the kind of interest is like 400% or so. So something ridiculous. Anyway, he bought a car for $6,000, and he got a bill for $45,000 and needed to be paid that day, or it went up again the next day. And then these guys start following him around in a vehicle, and they're these massive tall men, and then they pay him a visit and break all his fingers. And terrorise him, basically, for doing what he had done. And I don't know what they got out of it or anything else, but it was kind of a cycle. They did it to him, and they did it to others. And it was about 2 hours long, and it was one of these films I just thought, I should turn this off. I kept thinking it every 10, 15, I should really turn this off. But I stuck with it, and yeah, I should have turned it off really after about 15 minutes. But it was... it was interesting to say, Lily. So I didn't know what way it was going at all. It did kept changing, and certainly the finger's getting broken. There's these three massive blokes called Tic Tac and Toe. I don't know how they got that one. And it was just so it's on Prime, Larry. Tall Men. I think it got like 3.5 on IMDb, so it's up there.
Tall Men.
Tall Men. It's called Men.
Have to at least give
not Tall Man, because the Tall Man I like from whatever it is. I've got a memory blank again. So I watched that, and I watched The Witch, which we know about. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is the second time I'd ever watched it. It's been quite a while since I watched it. It was called Dread. And what a film that is. And I'm amazed there wasn't a second or a third one. Because apparently there was going to be a trilogy. And it is so good. It had Bones from Star Trek in it, playing Dread.
Carl Urban, yeah. I love it. So good.
Have you seen it, Jess? It's about Judge Dredd. It is.
Yes.
Isn't that from the 80s, Dread?
No, not the Stallone.
Yeah, I was going to say not the.
Oh, the recent
2012.
one.
Yeah,
it was great.
Carl Urban,
really
as in the bloke from Lord of the Rings.
And the boys as well.
Yeah,
honestly, give it a watch. And if you've never, I'm surprised you haven't seen that. If you haven't, it's fantastic.
Really good.
It's a shame because it didn't.
That's some good
didn't get the appraisal that it should have deserved. So they just decided to drop it, like all of the sequels, and which is.
Wasn't there a big picture of Judge Dredd painted on a wall at college?
Yeah, there was.
When you came back, he was like the logo for the media department.
When you came up the stairs, right on the stairs on the.
Yeah, and it was like a big.
How you remembered that? Fair play. That's only popped us back into my head again. Like, because that was second year when they built all the stuff, and then it got put onto the wall for the film media and game making department. Yeah,
so the whole media department had a logo of just Dredd.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing. Stayed up late to watch it. Yeah, I've been playing more Rust. How about you, Larry? What have you been watching?
So I watched with my dad the other day The Tomorrow War with Chris Pratt.
Oh, I'm saving that yet.
I haven't heard great things about that. I must say.
The best way to put it is we were watching it, and after every certain scene, we were just there, we were there going, "This is going to happen next," and then it would, and you'd sit there and go, "Right, I wonder how it will end. Will they play into this?" And I think that's where my enjoyment came from it, because we were just sat there going back and forth, like, "Oh, if it ends stereotypically like this, and if it does this," but I have to say, what I did like about it was I thought the acting was really good. I thought, it's a decent film. It's not a bad film. It's just, if you're going into it going like, "Oh, I want something new and fresh." I mean, you have seen the film before. They're just using, just tiny little changes and stuff, which is
It's Chris Pratt.
Yeah, Chris Pratt and J.K. Simmons. And again, I think the best way to put it is if you go and watch it, you will start it, and as it goes on, you'll go, "This will happen next," and then it does happen. And you kind of go, "Well, maybe I was lucky," and then by about the 17th time, you're like, "Is this how it's going to end?" And then and what's annoying is they've done that already. That typical thing with like Army of the Dead, where they're like, "Oh, we want a sequel and we want a third film. We want to make this a trilogy of films," and it really takes away from the enjoyment when you know that before. So you go in going, "Well, set up, there's little breadcrumbs left for like, oh, sequel bait," and it's a shame. But Loki, been watching that as well. I think that's fantastic. I won't obviously go into what happened in 4, but obviously if you've seen 4, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's episode to find out what's going to happen from that. What else did I watch? I watched quite a few things. They were mainly on streaming though, so I watched. It was after Starship Troopers on Disney Plus. They had another. That was it. I was able to watch The Empty Man again, which I really could not recommend enough to.
What's that on?
Well,
because I want to watch it.
So it's coming back to Disney Plus again on the 9th. or it might be today. Actually, it might be the 6th. It's either the 6th or the 9th.
I might watch that tonight. Yeah,
but yeah, it's honestly like I couldn't recommend it enough. It's weird and it does take some experimental aspects into it. But what I quite enjoyed was that it's quite. I don't know. I found it quite. I wouldn't say scary, but I did find it kind of like borderline of this is quite, not. It left me on the edge of my seat a bit sometimes, and I've watched it twice now. Each time I'm like, yeah, this is actually pretty decent. And then
that's next on my list.
Other than that, just like I said at the beginning, just played some Chivalry 2, which again would recommend.
Chivalry, yeah. Ewan?
Well, lots of things. I suppose the most relevant one, I saw Black Widow last week because they held a special screening in Leicester Square. It's all right. I've heard a lot of positive things, and that's great. And I think if you're a big MCU fan, I think you'll really like it. But what's really confusing for me is that it's the first one of the new Phase 4 stage of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, despite the fact that it's set during the events of Phase 3. Yeah. So it's set between Civil War and Infinity War. And it's okay. I do think Florence Pugh is the best thing about it. And even she's kind of she's great in everything she does. But even then, I feel like she's been harnessed a bit. She's very funny in the film, but she's a bit harnessed. And so it was fun and it was enjoyable. And I do recommend seeing it at the cinema if you'll see it anywhere, because I feel like it's coming to Disney Plus on premium release on Friday as well. But I feel like it's a film. I reckon if I just watched it on streaming, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. But because it was at the cinema, it was like an event, and it was really fun and stuff like that.
What were the after credits scenes like? Without revealing anything, did they set up anything good, or
they set up for a certain character to probably make another film thing, which I'm not too I'm not too fussed about. It's fine, it'll be quite interesting to see where they go with it. So yeah, that's Black Widow. That's coming out tomorrow, Wednesday, in cinemas. I've also been watching Loki, and but I've also been alongside that. I've been watching Rick and Morty. Season 5 is coming out weekly now, and I watched the first episode of season 5, and I was like, I really miss Rick and Morty, so I'm just going to watch them all again. And I did, and it's funny watching Loki at the same time, because I mean, loads of people were saying that Loki's just like Doctor Who, and even though I agree with that, I think it's much more similar to Rick and Morty in the directions they go. And I wasn't surprised to find out that the writer creator of Loki was actually a writer on Rick and Morty as well. So it's not surprising. I've also been rewatching The Sopranos in preparation for the upcoming prequel movie that's coming out in October, I think. It's funny, I haven't watched it since I was a teenager, and after about 3 episodes, it's abundantly clear that's my favorite TV show of all time. And that's after, I think in the meantime, between watching Sopranos as a teenager and now, I watch Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, Dexter, and all that stuff, and I just every episode of Sopranos is just absolute genius. So yeah, I've been watching that. And also I watched an interesting Danish film called Another Round, which stars Mads Mikkelsen. It's about 4 middle-aged teachers who go on this sort of, there's this like pseudo-scientific theory that suggests you have to have your blood alcohol content to 0.5%. And so every day they drink, like through their lessons and everything, they drink in order to try and it ends up, obviously predictably, ends up just them just getting absolutely shit-faced and just trying to teach lessons and stuff. It's a really good film. It won the International Feature Oscar, and it's really, really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And it left me in a sort of existential stupor like days afterwards, which is an interesting feeling you get from a comedy.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's a good one too.
Brilliant. Jess?
So Loki, of course, I've been watching. I've been really enjoying it. as you mentioned the Doctor Who thing, I do find one of the characters really reminds me of Jodie Whittaker, and it kind of puts me off because
I thought you were going to a compliment.
No, I have not enjoyed any of the new Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker. Nothing against her. I think it's the writers, and I just have not enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed maybe one episode since she's been on, which is a real shame. So that kind of put me off that character a bit. But otherwise, I've really enjoyed it. Also, a note to anyone who's planning on watching it. Season 4 does have an end credit scene. Don't miss it, because the other episodes didn't. So I'm very glad I noticed that did. Which also a lot of memes have come out of. I don't know if you've seen.
No, yeah, I've seen a few, yeah.
Yeah, which has been very enjoyable.
I don't even know what a meme is, so
God,
there you go.
Yeah.
Let's not go into it next week.
Yeah, that's not this. We're already an hour and 10 minutes in. That's no. So then I watched. I've been rewatching Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously they announced there's gonna finally be a new season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I don't know where they're going with that. Like, if they could just erase the last couple seasons and then start this from there.
It was
maybe
all a
that would be
dream.
good.
Yeah.
But we'll see about that. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. But I also finally watched Disney's The Lion King, like live action, I guess, remake.
I've been too afraid to go near it.
I genuinely really, really enjoyed it. It looks incredible. The only thing I didn't enjoy was that Beyonce plays Nala as an adult, and I hate when movies do that because they do it just so that they have the musician obviously in to do the songs. But I didn't really like her voice for Nala. So yeah, but otherwise the film was amazing, really good. But yeah, that's it really. I've been playing Dark Souls, so that's been fun learning how to play that because that's a game.
That's a game.
Dark Souls. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't rage quit yet, so that's good.
So next week, the week after, whenever we do it, we've had a couple of weeks. We've only released a couple in the last month, but hence why everyone's been so busy. Maybe we'll release more. I'm not sure. So the next episode, probably we should do, is The Witch. What's your thoughts?
I agree.
Yeah.
A good one.
Yeah. So we'll do The Witch because I want to watch it. It'll be my third watch when I watch it again, but I think I got a lot more from it the second time. There is a lot going on in it. And I love the main actor. What's his name? The one from The Office.
I don't remember his name. Just Finchy.
Yeah.
Finchy from The Office. His voice is just amazing. I struggled with some of the language, actually what they were saying. But yeah, we should visit that, and then you guys can explain what's going on to me. Going on. Do you know what I mean? It's a tricky one. So that would be our episode 57. So okay, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's the Bones Horror Pod, Facebook Bones Horror Podcast, Instagram, Jess's thing, Bones Horror Pod. You can email us at boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. We need reviews. No one leaves us any. I don't know if anyone actually gets as far into the podcast. We don't know, but please leave us one. That'd be good. Much appreciated. So we will be back soon with episode 57, The Witch. See you later.
Bye.